Chapter 4. The hours slipped away, grains of bleached white sand falling through the blue-tinted hourglass in the back of the room. After each hour the device would turn itself over, emitting a slight sense of magic that would twinge in the back of Nadia's mind. She didn't pay the passing of time any heed, instead finding herself surprised when, after going by a window, she saw pure darkness outside. High above the observatory, all was twinkling stars, blocked out here and there with snow-laden clouds. "Seems it's dinner time. Put the books back on the table, save for the annual weather patterns. I'll be having a look at that later tonight." Cabron nodded. Nadia turned back around to wipe down a few dusty flasks. Wait, shit, he can't read. He won't know which one is... She twirled around. Cabron was there, hand about to tap her shoulder with the thick brown book she'd requested. Nadia flipped through a few pages, noting the dates and information. Must have remembered how it looked on the outside. She tucked it into her bag and did a quick scan of the room. Though still a bit messy and dusty, apparently having not seen much use in recent months, it was fine for now. Tomorrow they'd get to real magic. Tomorrow the work would truly begin. As they rushed down the staircase and through the hallways, Nadia tried to calm herself. She kept glancing at the walls as if expecting a clock to appear and remind her of the seconds ticking by. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's much looser around here. Meals aren't mandatory, and tardiness is non-existent. She slowed her pace as the dining hall came into view. No need to let the others think she was hurrying around, that she cared about rules that didn't apply here. Nadia took a deep breath, summoning her etiquette training. Back straight, shoulders back, hands at sides, breathing through nose, and enter. The clock on the far wall read 6:32. There were only a few people in the room. Gavovenya, of course, a woman with bright green eyes, a broad-shouldered man with a beard, and Fabula, Gav's helper. As she slid into her seat, Cabron at her side, Nadia watched Fabula bring out an extra plate and a dish for Cabron. It was almost like having servants again. Except, well, after dinner, Nadia would be the one doing laundry. Oh, hell, where's the laundry room? Nadia glanced around the table before she decided to speak with the unnamed woman. She seemed friendly enough, nose buried in a book on galaxies. "Hi! I'm terribly sorry. I don't believe I remember your name. Must have slipped my mind. I'm Nadia O'Lear, and this is my familiar, Cabron." Nadia extended her hand across the table. The woman, nose now poking out of her book, blinked at the hand a few times. She dog-eared the page before shaking Nadia's hand. The woman reminded Nadia of an owl, with her large eyes and silent manner. Even when she spoke, the woman was quiet and slow. "I'm Leonora. I'm the second astronomer." "Oh, do you work under Ertha?" "Only in name. We are equals." "How nice! You must spend a lot of time up in the dome I've heard so much about." Leonora twirled her fork in a bowl of buttered pasta. "What have you heard?" "Well, that it's optimal for studying the stars. I heard a rumor once that the glass had been enchanted to be especially clear and to magnify the sky. Is that true?" Leonora considered the question for a moment. "I'm unsure. I'll ask Erthe. He knows more about this place than me." "Does he?" "Yes. He's been here longer than me. I only joined a few years ago." Leonora sipped at her drink, a cooled hot chocolate from what Nadia could tell. After picking up her own drink, Nadia's hunch was pleasantly confirmed. "But I know where the laundry room is, if that's what you're wondering." Nadia spluttered, almost spitting her drink out. She choked the liquid down and tried to seem unmoved by this comment, mouth a firm line and eyes unblinking. "Yes, I was planning to ask about that eventually. I'm afraid Balder's tour wasn't the most thorough." "The laundry room is in the basement. If you go to the lounge, it should be on the map. The supplies are in the laundry room." "Thank you. And am I to go to everyone's rooms and collect their laundry?" "No, not unless anyone specifically said so. Today's laundry day, the actual one, so you're not washing a few tablecloths or bloodied aprons, and everyone either will or has already brought down their laundry to the room in their bins. Sorry, bloodied aprons? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes. Did you ever learn about reproductive science and human anatomy?
Okay, yes, I am aware.
Good.
With that, Leonora cracked open her book again, promptly shutting down the conversation. Fabula, bending down with a pitcher to refill Leonora's mug, mouthed across the table to Nadia, "Antisocial." With a mouthful of pasta, Nadia glanced out of the corner of her eye at the last unnamed dinner guest. He was sitting to her right, a man with short, curling, reddish-brown hair and a hint of a beard. A guard for the observatory, perhaps? He does have the muscle for it. "I don't believe I've met you either. I am Nadia O'Lear."
"Yes, and you've got the familiar, Cabron. I heard your spiel a few minutes ago."
His voice was gruff, as if unaccustomed to talking. "Oh, yes, well, best to reintroduce myself every time. You can never be sure if one overheard correctly."
"I'm Bastien."
"Well, it's lovely to meet you, Bastien." Nadia extended a hand. Bastin shook it firmly, fingernails caked with brown dirt. Bastin met her eyes before glancing at his own hands.
"I work in the gardens."
"Oh, I suppose you're responsible for the base's fresh produce."
"Yeah, I help Marina out. I used to be a farmer anyways. It's pretty nice."
With each sentence, Nadia noticed him slurring letters and dropping T's. It was odd to meet what seemed to be a rural farmer out here. Then again, it wasn't as if she'd ever been here before moving in. Just heard of the observatory in science journals, seen the names of scientists residing there attached to numerous discoveries and innovations. I suppose they might hire low-level support staff. It doesn't seem as if many people opt to move out here.
"You're a weather mage, right?"
It wasn't phrased like a question. "Yes, I specialize in storms."
"What are you hoping to find out here?"
Nothing he said ventured past a neutral statement. "Oh, I'm mostly planning on seeing how use of magic might affect the weather patterns in the future."
"So, cause and effect."
"Yes, it's actually a rather undeveloped field. To think people are going about summoning rain or raising the heat in an area without understanding if it might lead to extreme consequences, such as a future drought."
"A future drought, eh? Sounds serious."
Nadia had to stop herself from gesturing with her fork as she spoke. "Well, merely thinking about it, one were to summon rain, where it would come from. Something cannot come from nothing. That water came from somewhere, whether it be moisture in the air or groundwater nearby."
"So you're gonna cast some spells and see if it rains when it should."
"More or less."
"Huh."
Bastin returned back to his food. Nadia got the impression that the observatory's residents were incredibly tight-lipped. Other than Balder and Fabula, it seemed as if few of them could hold a conversation for longer than a minute, let alone make it interesting. Glancing at Cabron out of the corner of her eye, she internally sighed, almost wishing he could speak, could say something to her. Nadia imagined herself as a social butterfly, an adept in the world of small talk and first impressions. Truthfully, she wasn't, but she still held on to that ideal. After 15 minutes of silent eating, Nadia rose. "All right, I'm off to the laundry room. Take care, everyone." "Good night," a voice called from the kitchen. Gav, presumably. Fabula cheerfully echoed the sentiment, but after a few steps in the hallway, all sound was lost, and all was quiet. Nadia hefted another bin of dirtied clothes on top of the machinery. It was an old set, that was for sure. Half of the room was taken up by 3 separate machines, all needing their own mixtures or ingredients to be poured in. At her house, well, Nadia didn't know what the maids used to clean her clothes, but presumably whatever it was had been much easier and much more compact. The first of these machines was labeled as a lavarestum. The machine filled with water before rising into the air, aided by levitation magic worked into the metal and spinning rapidly. Soap and cleaning chemicals would be poured inside to aid in this process. Thankfully, the metal hatch that allowed the clothes to be deposited seemed to be airtight, or at least watertight. Next in line was the torvestim. Similar to the lavarvestim, it was aided by levitation magic. Whereas the lavarvestim spun in the air above, this machine would rise before slotting into a small furnace in the wall that would ignite, heating the clothes inside the machine until they were dry. Nadia had to admire the integrity of the metal. It must have gone through dozens of fiery cycles, yet the metal showed few signs of meltage, save for a scattering of bumpy ridges across the bottom. And the last machine, the one Nadia appreciated the most, the derogavestim. A long table-like apparatus with a metal appendage that would heat up and move of its own accord, smoothing out the wrinkles and folds in one's clothing. Nadia did always hate the occasional wrinkle in her clothes, a nasty little thing that would soil her well-maintained and pristine image. "Now, fold that lot and set them on the table there." Nadia guided Cabron to a long wooden table in the back, with the bins tucked into the space under it. "Sort each person's clothes so they're above their bins. Just go left to right." The laundry bins were arranged in alphabetical order by first name, starting with Baldur and ending with William. 10 bins for the 10 residents, if Nadia included herself. For herself and Shialn, their familiar's clothing was piled into the same bin, though Nadia could easily distinguish her and Cabron's clothes by their quality and the fading of the fabric. As she poured a bottle labeled detergent, Nadia couldn't help but wonder at an unlabeled bin she'd found in the corner of the room, full of aprons and protective coverings. Perhaps they're spare clothes for anyone's use, in case someone really needed to perform an experiment. They seemed expensive, though. Nadia discovered a pair of brown gloves reinforced with a handful of enchantments to make them resistant to chemical damage and necrotic energy. Back home, these would rack up quite the price. "Ah, you're on laundry today." Nadia whirled around, finding herself face to face with an unfamiliar man in a white apron. He greeted her with a dazzling smile, stretching a face dotted with freckles and creased with laughter lines. He laughed at her startled expression. "Sorry there, didn't mean to sneak up. I know the machines can be pretty noisy. Say, I don't know you." His voice was smooth and even as he introduced himself. "I'm Rowan. Pleasure to make your acquaintance." A true gentleman. "I am Nadia O'Lear, the new storm mage. I arrived just the other day with my familiar here, Cabron, in tow." "A storm mage? My, oh my, we haven't had one of those in a while." "Yes, it seems as if most people on this base are not magically inclined." Rowan spared a short glance at Cabron. Nadia found it hard to read his pleasant features, but she imagined it to be intrigue or curiosity that crossed his face. Rowan took a few steps closer to Cabron. Am I right in assuming this is a mountain goat you've chosen?" "Well, yes, but I didn't choose—" "A proper choice indeed. These creatures can take a punch if need be, and much more in terms of magic." Rowan pulled his hands out from behind his back, revealing them to be covered in thin white gloves as he tipped back Cabron's head. Rowan angled Cabron's face from side to side, inspecting Nadia's familiar with keen eyes. Nadia shot a glare at Cabron, willing him to step down and bear Rowan's examination. "Interesting. Its horns are shaved down." "Yes, Cabron used to be rather violent, so his trainers shaved them off. I only acquired Cabron recently, so they haven't had much time to grow back. They'll end up being black and spiraling outwards." Rowan took a step backwards, hands neatly clasped behind his back in a way that puffed out his chest. Cabron, though somewhat shorter than Rowan, seemed to make an attempt at recovering face. He rolled his shoulders and chewed his lip face tight before turning back to folding laundry. "What is it you do here, Rowan? I'm surprised I haven't met you yet." "I perform maintenance. These old machines, especially the derogavestim, act up now and then, so I stop by often." Nadia turned back toward the quietly rumbling machines. "They do seem a bit out of date. Wouldn't it be best to replace them?" Rowan smiled.
A bit hard to get all the parts out here, let alone a workman to properly assemble it and a mage to check the enchantments. They're heading towards an eventual decay, as we all are, but should still last a decade or so.
When were they shipped out here?
Rowan sucked in a breath as if trying to recall a faraway memory. I'd guess 2 decades ago.
How long has the observatory been here? I thought it was newer.
I believe you're confused with the Mailked Observatory. Construction on Mailked was only finished 4 years ago, though it had been in the works for nearly a decade. There's also the Lavdir Observatory, Mailked's sister facility dedicated to the study of fauna. Lavdir was finished 8 years ago.
You certainly know a lot.
Rowan chuckled. I've done maintenance for them as well. Comparatively, Afghat is ancient. Having been built 117 years ago, it initially served as a military outpost before being abandoned after only 48 years. An explorer rediscovered it 30 years ago, and the facility was converted to an outpost for funded scientists and mages.
Nadia suppressed a giggle. I suppose your last name is Encyclopedia?
Rowan laughed in response, splaying a hand across his chest. No, it's Arkin. It's just that I am easily swept into the role of a teacher. Afghat's resident chatterbox.
Nadia leaned against the table. I prefer your chatterbox tendencies. Everyone else is clammed up whenever I see them.
Oh, don't blame them. Rowan was cut off by a loud ringing noise as the lava of Estim descended, gently settling down on the stone floor. Or as gently as it could, Nadia noted with a wince as it made a scraping noise. Cabran approached the machine, waiting until it was fully settled, and the illusionary ringing was gone before he pulled out the wet clothes. Always handy to have a helper.
Nadia nodded. It does cut time from all of this.
Rowan brought his arm up to his face, peering at a small watch. I'm afraid I must be on my way. Wires to mend, pipes to clear.
You should stop by dinner sometime. I haven't seen you at the meals yet.
I work odd hours. It's rare that someone's awake at the same time as me. As he made to leave, Rowan met Nadia's eyes. Perhaps one day I could make the time. Rowan left, accompanied only by the distant pattering of his near-silent footsteps, but his bright brown eyes lingered in Nadia's mind.